Welcome to the 12 Hike Podcast, where we talk about all the spooky things that happen outdoors. This is Zach Jenkins. Thanks for listening. This is shaping up to be the last of my special Halloween spooky stories. I spent a lot of time focusing on the western part of the United States, so I think it's time that I head back east to my roots. I want to tell you a couple of stories that have their roots in the heart of Appalachia, in southern Ohio, and the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that I moved to Colorado last year from southern Ohio. My hometown is Portsmouth, Ohio, a small and sleepy river town along the banks of the Ohio River. Established in 1803, Portsmouth quickly became a bustling town and a frequent stopping point for commerce boaters along their voyages up and down the river. At one point, Portsmouth was even being considered to be the state capital. The historic downtown section of Portsmouth is even referred to as Boney Fiddle, and the mascot is a skeleton fiddler. So that should give you an idea of the history of the town. Portsmouth has a long history and has naturally spawned its share of spooky stories and urban legends. One of those tales is of the White Lady. According to the legend, one dark October night in the 1800s, a crew of the Canal Gal boat were docked on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River. All throughout the night as they sat in port, they could hear the desperate screams and pleas of a woman from across the river. The next morning, a hunter came across a grisly scene, the bloody and mutilated body of a woman in white. That woman's name was Mary Fisk. When crews went to investigate Mary's cabin, which was located at Alexandria Point, they found the cabin to be a bloody mess. Mary's 6-year-old son was nowhere to be found. The only clue was a huge, bloody handprint on the door of the cabin. Mary's husband was out of town on a hunting trip, and because he was not due back for some time, Mary's neighbors buried her in an unmarked grave. And ever since this October day, many people have called Alexandria Point White Lady Point. To this day, people still claim to see Mary's ghost with outstretched hands, screaming for help in the place where her home once stood. There have also been claims that she has been seen chasing boats on the Ohio River in hopes of receiving the help that never came. So the next time you're on the Ohio River near Portsmouth, Ohio, in the early hours of the morning, look a little closer through the fog and mist. You may catch a fleeting glimpse of the White Lady. The hills of Appalachia range from the south in Georgia all the way to the great state of Maine. It has its own distinct culture that has been formed through the generations. A deep part of that heritage is rooted in the Native American inhabitants that once dominated the region. One of the oldest legends of the Smoky Mountains is the legend of Spearfinger. Spearfinger is a Cherokee legend that lived along the eastern side of Tennessee in western North Carolina in the Great Smoky Mountains. Her Cherokee name, I'm going to try to pronounce this but butcher it, Utulunta, translates to "she had it sharp." The legend refers to her sharp finger on her right hand, which gives her the name Spearfinger. According to Cherokee lore, Spearfinger stabs her victims in the back of the neck or through the heart, and then she draws out their liver. She's quick, and if you happen to be too close, there's no chance of escape. Victims don't feel the wound, and she doesn't leave a scar. However, it only takes a few days for the victim to die due to the lack of a liver. The forefinger of her right hand is her sharp finger, and it resembles an obsidian knife, with Spearfinger's sharp finger and a mouth stained with the blood of the livers that she ate from her victims. She surely was a horrific sight and sent chills throughout the mountains. Her evil heart was hidden in her right hand and was her only weak spot. Therefore, she kept it clutched tightly to protect it. Being made of stone, she had to make sure the heart in her hand was never exposed to danger. And since she was made of stone, she sounded like rolling thunder when she walked. She crushed rocks and boulders into the ground. Her voice bounced off the mountains and echoed down the valleys into the villages. Spearfinger got her stone clothes when she upset the higher beings. Legend has it, she came too close to where they lived by building a rock bridge, the Tree Rock, that spanned up through the air towards them. As punishment, the higher beings struck the bridge down in a powerful bolt of lightning, causing the bridge to crumble down upon Spearfinger, cloaking her in rock and rubble. Years ago, the Cherokee actually pinpointed the location where the ruins of Spearfinger's Tree Rock remain, in Blount County, Tennessee. They named the area Nantahala. She not only has her Spearfinger, which she uses to spear her victims, she also has the ability to shapeshift into the family members of her child victims. But when she would turn into a different shape, she couldn't simply shift back into her old stone form unless she was completely out of sight. Her normal shape-shifting form is that of an old lady, one whom the children know and don't fear. The children would trust her, allowing her to get close because she would resemble an older woman of the tribe. She would lure them close, often offering to comb their hair and lull them to sleep before spearing them with her finger. Once asleep, the victim would be unaware of the finger slipping out from under her robe until it was too late. Spearfinger would slide her finger into the body and remove the liver for her supper. She would use her talent of shapeshifting to sometimes turn into her victim. She would hide the body of her previous victim and enter their family home, disguised as the family member which she just killed, and wait until the family fell asleep. What happened next is probably pretty easy to guess. Spearfinger used the customs of the Cherokee to help her in her search for victims with fresh livers. In the fall, Cherokee tribes would set brush fires, which would lead Spearfinger to the location. The fires would cover the mountainsides so the tribe could collect the fallen chestnuts. These were already roasted from the brush fire. Spearfinger also took advantage of the clouds of fog that rose from the valleys. That is, after all, why they're called the Smoky Mountains. She would use the fog for cover when she would hunt children from the Cherokee tribes. The fog allowed her to creep close to those who sometimes came to drink from a stream or pick strawberries as they grew wild on the mountainside. The Cherokee called a council to try to figure out how to get rid of Spearfinger once and for all. And they used her own tactic against her. They set a trap using their custom of burning the ground for chestnuts. They dug a deep pit lined with sharp sticks and covered it with earth. Once they set the ground ablaze, it wasn't long before the earth rumbled with the arrival of Spearfinger. Just as planned, she fell into the pit, and immediately the Cherokee began firing arrows at her. However, they were aiming for where her heart should be, at her chest, and not in her right hand. A titmouse, a small bird, flew down to help, landing on Spearfinger's chest, singing "Heart, heart, heart." An arrow cut the tongue out of the bird's mouth. And this is said to be punishment for not telling the truth about where Spearfinger's heart truly was. Eventually, a chickadee landed on the right hand of Spearfinger. She began to quake as she realized her secret was revealed. A Cherokee arrow found its mark and severed the right hand and Spearfinger's heart from her body. Slowly, she collapsed into a heap of stones, and the Cherokee rejoiced in the defeat of Spearfinger. Spearfinger had a male counterpart, however. Stone Man was a more powerful version of Spearfinger and continued to hunt the livers of those Cherokee tribes. So, if you're in the Great Smoky Mountains and you hear rumbling with no clouds overhead, it may just be Stone Man stomping through the valleys and over the ridges, singing his song, looking for your liver. I hope everyone enjoyed these stories. I had a lot of fun researching them and a lot of fun telling them. It's something I'm going to probably continue doing. I got a little encouragement from an old high school friend, Miss Sarah Boggs. She said she really enjoyed the crime aspect or the mystery aspect of the outdoors. So on occasion I may throw in some of that for flair. Also, be sure to go check out our Facebook page, 12 Hike, and be sure to check out our Instagram page, 12 Hike Challenge. We also have a new web store up and running. You should be able to find that on our Facebook page. We got t-shirts, hats, beanies, sweaters, and we're adding more stuff every day.